Well, good afternoon, paddlers. This is Gary again with yet another crap paddling video. This is a special edition video uh, from the California Center for Research on Advanced Paddling. And I think you may notice as we pass the UCLA Marine Aquatic Center, where I learned how to kayak and row and all kinds of cool stuff on the water, that I am on my bicycle. Why am I on my bicycle? Well, simple. A bicycle has propulsion that in many ways is quite similar to what paddles do on the water. Now, there are some differences as well, but I want to highlight the similarities between pedal stroke and paddle stroke. In fact, they almost sound the same, so you think there'd be some similarities. So I'm going to start off with, well, I'm just paddling normally now, but I'm going to put the camera down so you can see my feet and my pretty white and green striped socks. So I'm just paddling normally now, but that's not something I'm interested in at this moment. I am going to start off pedaling as we would be paddling first a single bladed paddle. So this is canoe, sprint canoe, recreation canoe, outrigger canoe, stand-up paddleboard, dragon boat, that kind of stuff. Okay? So with a single bladed paddle, you can only apply force on one side of the boat. All right? That's a single paddler. So that stroke can be divided into four parts. There is first the catch, where you start applying propulsion. Second, there is propulsion, which is typically called the drive, but I'm calling it the propulsion. Then we have the release. On the water, it's the release of the blade from the water. You take the blade out of the water. Here, I'm just pausing to release the chain from the sprocket in the rear wheel. And then we have what I'm calling drag, typically called the recovery or air time, where there is no propulsion applied. So let's see what that looks like on the bike. And again, I am trying to imitate a single bladed paddling, and that means I need to release at the end of the stroke when I'm doing that. Okay, so notice that the only time I am applying propulsive force is when the foot is going down. That maximum force is when the foot is most forward, like at 3 o'clock, and then at the bottom it releases, all right, and that's where your so-called air time would stop, but I'm calling it drag time, or the drag phase. And then I bring it up, not applying force, catch again, and do it over and over, okay? So the thing to notice here is that the catch is the beginning of the application of force, and that gives me propulsion. Soon as I release, that is drag, only drag. There is no more propulsive force, and the bike is going to have to decelerate. Okay, that's what's going to happen here. So it accelerates during the propulsion phase. Then after the release, it is the drag phase. It has to decelerate, and I catch again. I do that over and over. Okay, so that's my take on a single bladed paddle. Now, of course, if you're sitting down or standing up, you can switch sides usually, and you can do it on the other side, which is kind of nice. You're still using your other arms and that, but it's slightly different muscles, and so you get some recovery that way. Okay, so here I am switching to the left side. Of course, if you're C1, C2, C4 kneeling, then you can't switch. Then I can come back to my right side. Okay, so the important thing here is propulsion is only during the propulsion phase. After the release, there is no propulsion, only drag forces at play, so that's the drag phase. And I catch again and I repeat that, okay, over and over. Now, one of the problems with a single blade is that there's kind of a long time there to get the blade back where it needs to be to make another catch. So, thousands of years ago, the Inuit in Greenland and northern Canada, uh, and the Aleuts in Alaska, and also Siberia, they came up with a double-bladed paddle. Holy moly, isn't that cool? So what does that look like? Well, it's going to look sort of like this. Now I have those phases on each side, right? So I can catch, propulse, and then just still we have this sort of air time, but on the water, both of the blades will be out at the same time. So it's still less of a drag phase than it would be with a single bladed paddle. Of course, on the bike, it's a bit different because I never have 2 feet doing nothing at the same time. But it's the same kind of idea. If I push down, there's still propulsive force. I am accelerating, then I release, and it's briefly, very briefly, it's going to be the drag phase, and then the other side is going to provide force. It's the same thing when there's no propulsion and there is a release. The bike will be slowing down. That's all it will be doing. Okay? So there you have sort of the comparison of paddling and pedaling in terms of their similarities. Now, you may know that cyclists don't do any catch or release or drag time. They do drag time if they're just coasting. And again, if they're coasting on flat land, on a flat road, they will only be slowing down. If they're going down a hill, of course, they can be maintaining speed, even accelerating. Okay, but normally I'm pedaling like this, and I'm always applying force. Now I can do this, sort of try to simulate my kayak stroke, but now I'm losing speed after each stroke, after each propulsion phase. It's slowing down, and I gotta make that up again. Gotta make it up, right? So it makes more sense to just apply a steady force. Okay, alternating legs like this. Notice that what people refer to as running the boat or gliding, that would be this. Not applying force. If I'm on flat ground, I'm only decelerating. Instantly, as soon as I release, I am decelerating. Now, some people talk about, well, you got to get the boat back to at least average speed. Well, as soon as I stop applying force, that's the maximum speed. And then when I do the catch again, no matter how brief that drag phase is, the bike or the boat will be traveling at its slowest speed. Okay? So it's already at its slower speed at every catch. That's how it works by Newton's first law of motion. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out here is that paddling, you're pushing water back, pulling water back, moving water back. Here, what am I doing? Well, I'm actually not on water, but I'm still moving a mass backwards. I have to. But since I am connected very solidly to the earth with my tires on the bike path, I am actually changing the acceleration of the total mass of the earth, which is pretty neat to think about. That is much more than you could ever do on a kayak where you're just accelerating a quantity of water. So what is to be learned here is that there is really no need to go into a drag phase, or there's no need, certainly you can't avoid the drag phase on a kayak, because there will be a time when both blades are out of the water. And when you get to the catch, the boat will be going as slow as it's going to go during that previous stroke cycle, right? So any bit you slow down is just going to make it even slower, and you're going to have to make that up by applying next force the next time. So it may be kind of interesting here to try to compare the two. So I am going to, it is now 20:34 in terms of the elapsed time. And I'm just going to pedal along normally. This is certainly for me a sustainable speed. It's only a bit of a headwind. It feels like it shouldn't be at this time of day, but it seems to be. So I'm going like 28 kilometers an hour, 27, only 120 heart rate, the bottom of my zone 2. Okay, so I can do that and see what that's like. Very sustainable. No need to stop pedaling to get my bike down to a sustainable speed, and it doesn't make any sense to stop pedaling to take advantage of the previous stroke, because all I'd be doing then is slowing down slower than the minimum speed that the boat was already traveling. So let me see if I can do about 26, 27 miles an hour with just kayak style stroke. So what I'm going to do is try to release a little bit after each stroke before I start the next one. And I can tell you there's 24 only. My heart rate is up to 128 or so. This is 22 minutes about. Started this. And this just is more effortful. Even though I'm getting a little break in between, I have to hit that force to make up the speed. And actually, because I am letting the bike run, which is the same as letting the bike slow down or glide, I got to put more effort in. And that is not a winning situation. Best is to apply steady power. So you will never, ever see a cyclist watching a kayaker and saying, wow, I want to paddle like those guys, because they get to vary their speed so much, and they can let the boat slow down and take their time, and that apparently is good because they're doing that, but it doesn't work on the bike. It would never be used on the bike. On the other hand, I want you to think a little bit about, as a kayaker, how you might be paddling more like a cyclist who is applying constant pressure. Really, when I'm paddling normally, there is no drag period. There's always some propulsion, right? So on the kayak, you can avoid having some air time. But there is no reason with respect to speed and effort that I can see for ever wanting to develop a drag phase on the bike. So paddlers should try to think about paddling more like cyclists pedal. So there you go. I should have turned this up toward the end for my conclusion. So let me know what you think about that. I think it makes some things a little bit clearer in terms of the necessity for slowing down the boat or the bike to apply force again. Not needed whatsoever. Okay, so this is Gary signing off with another crack paddling, in this case pedaling video from the California Center for Research on advanced paddling from the banks of beautiful Bayona Creek. I'm well inland where I normally, or I'm the water, and these are one of these famous channelized. It's all channelized now, and you can see that no natural banks on this part. And hopefully, maybe someday that will change. But anyway, okay. Until next time, great talking with you.